What is the future of physics? This is a question I found on Quora.com. And I'm going to read to you J. Ravas Atwood's opinion. According to him, there is a crisis in physics for two main reasons. The one is the lack of recent progress, and two is the competitive funding model. So we have science and politics. One is the lack of progress in science, and two is the politics involved in the science. So we all know, according to him, that relativity is incomplete. And we all know, according to him, that quantum theory is incomplete. There has been little or no progress for some decades. Attempts to reconcile relativity and quantum theory has been hyped once in a while here and there. But the hyping is just that. It's just a hype. There is no real answer. String theory, according to him, is dead. It's just stuff. It's just maths. According to Mr. Atwood, the low-hanging fruit, the stuff, that's at the beginning of something, has all been used up, And now we have to work harder for each new insight. But still problems that looked solvable when he was in school remain unsolved decades later. According to Atwood, the only physical phenomenon known to quantize energy is the standing wave. The electron forms a standing wave in the atom. In both Heisenberg's matrix mechanics and Schrodinger's partial differential equations. When you want to reconcile the two, you have to put gravity into it, So according to him, how is gravitational energy going to be quantized in the absence of a gravitational standing field? Note that all the science guys are talking basically the same stuff. There is no real progress. The next problem is the competitive funding model. Another problem, according to him, is when you make something a competition, humans will develop strategies to win that game that are unconnected to the goals of the competition. The goals of the competition is increased knowledge of science, but they've turned the competition to increased funding. The people who are good at competing for funding will be the ones that prosper. Given the complete lack of progress on the two main theories, we have to wonder if the people we need are being excluded by the process in favor of people who like competing and know how to compete. They know how to apply for funds, for grants and stuff like that. They're friends in government, they're friends in corporations, So that's his opinion. That's not my opinion. But here I'm going to say something. Note, all these so-called scientists on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, they all say the same thing. None are different, And they're all getting this, all usually from, no matter where, same funding source, no matter where they are. Be they in Europe, be they in America, be they in Canada, be it Australia, be it Africa, be it China, be it India, they all say the same thing, no matter where that TikTok scientist comes from or YouTube scientist. Because it's part of the competitive process for funding, And they all support each other's lies, or they're too scared to call out a lie, Stuff like virtual particles, When you equate virtual particles to magnetism, you are basically telling a lie, and you've got a whole crowd behind you who also want to be in on the funding supporting you, like, God damn it, you can measure magnetism. It's not a virtual anything. You can pick up a gauge meter and measure that thing. So it is corrupted because of the funding mechanisms. I mean, think about it. Heat. All heat is photons. But they were too busy all thinking alike that they couldn't figure out a simple thing, that heat is a physical thing. It all has to be photons. Because they're not thinking, you understand. Because it's a competitive process. They need funding and they don't want to be called out for thinking. You got to understand that. And the exclusion, where he says people who understand are excluded. I can give you my own personal example. I spent 12 years researching with my own funds, and I don't have a lot of funds. I'm not in a job that gives me enough money to have a lot of funds. So 12 years of research, and then the government of Canada takes my mind and gives it to Lee Smolin, who was then head of the Perimeter Institute, the most prestigious physics institute in Canada. This is a man who gets $400,000 a year. But in his entire life, he never came up with something new. The only new thing he got was a gift from the Canadian government of my mind to him. Think about that. $400,000 a year. And he was given so that it's part of his dream. He can live the dream of his people with my mind. So now he looks like a great scientist, but he's been called out on it, Science has always been a political thing. But there's no need to worry. There's a lot in physics that still has. The photon has not been taken care of properly. Why has the photon not been taken care of properly? Because everybody wants to think the same, and no one wants to investigate anything new. So there's still a lot of work on the photon, a lot. It's just because of the process that I have to fund myself, it takes time. But there's a lot of work on the photon. I mean, everybody's working on the same thing of the beginning of time now. They're all working on the same thing. So that they apply, can have some funding, same thing. So that's how it is. That's the future of physics. So because they're all doing the same thing and all scared to be wrong, because they need funding, this is how it has ended up. But there's still so much work on stuff like the photon. So much work on stuff like the electron. But they can't do it because they can't think outside the box. And I'm not going to tell them because they're going to steal it until I can gather enough resources and start publishing these papers. Publishing costs money. Of course, I'm not going to tell them because they will steal. They've used governments to steal my mind, to feed themselves so that they look good because of politics. They cannot have a Khumalo who uses his own resources to be seen to be discovering. It's better they steal it. But that is how humanity has always worked. So when you say be humane, but that is humane. Swindling each other and robbing each other and destroying each other is humane. That is a human. So that's the future of physics. So they're missing stuff like so much work on the electron, so much work on the photon. They're missing it because they need funding. And this competitive funding process means it won't be done. But we'll do it because we will find the funds.